I'm just going to do
Yeah, I'll wait and see if there's any papers.
so here, the language modeling, and I had frequent conversation. Packets?
Dennis, we've
Oh, you have some already?
Do you need a copy of this?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. And so you'll see the first page is just a little bit about that module, and then the second page you get to will be the frequent conversation. And I just wrote down a couple definitions of what the conversation is, and that would be information exchanged, ideas with spoken words. And I think respect goes along with conversation a lot. I have a couple pictures here about, well, conversations, and you could see, you could pass them around, and you can see the women in the first picture are friends, and that's how they relate to each other. And then the other ones are with children, and you should relate to the children the same way you would one of your friends, and respect them, and let's see, their abilities. And then at the bottom of the page there are several topics of discussion that you guys can get into conversation with them, because most of the time it's important when you're having conversations with children to use the words that they understand, and you know, when you're not really forcing that new vocabulary, words that they can say and relate to. So there's like 21 just in the first couple of pages of this book on things that the kids should already know a little bit about. So I also have a picture handout of what you don't want kids to feel like when you're talking to them, like they don't matter, or you're too busy, or you know, making them feel like you're the powerful person in the room. You know, it's studies show that if you're a partner in your conversation, or teaching the kid you're a partner with them, then they're more likely to respond to you rather than being the boss. So always get down on their level. And so with that, we're gonna.
Okay, I'm doing open-ended questions, and open-ended questions encourage children to use language by encouraging them to give fuller answers and draw on a wider range of vocabulary. Use whole sentences rather than sentence fragments. Be creative. Think of new ideas. Give more information, and it helps their problem-solving skills. And it also, open-ended questions, builds children's self-esteem. It shows them that their thoughts and ideas, opinions and feelings matter to us. It tells children that their contributions to the group discussions matter, that you really want to know what they think, you value their opinion, and it also builds staff-child relationships. And open-ended questions together with books, you can ask, what do you think the story will be about? Do the picture walk first and talk about what you think it would be about. And then they said in the, where I was reading, that they think it's easier to ask questions during the second reading instead of the first reading, because you're constantly stopping and starting, and the children start to lose interest. Like in one of them they said, can we get on with this?
Yeah, Dr. Cleveland at Mansfield always said, read it twice. First time, teach them they're going to read it through, and second time, stop and talk about it.
Okay. Another part of language modeling is repetition and extension. And the definition of that is you build on what children say, you model appropriate and complex language, and provide examples of different ways to use language. I made a little, okay, I'll just hold it right here, a little cartoon type poster here to show you a few examples of how to, like what low or repetition and extension would be, medium and high. First, low repetition and extension would be the teacher rarely or never repeats or extends what a student's response. And the teacher does not respond to a comment or questions from the students or ignores the student's attempts to communicate completely. Medium use of it would be teacher sometimes repeats or extends the student's responses. The teacher sometimes acknowledges a student's comment by repeating or modeling a little bit of language, but often the teacher ignores the child's comment completely. So this little cartoon here, this would be low and medium language modeling. During reading a story, if a child says, like, look, there's a bluebird, the teacher using low or medium would just say, yes, a bird, and continue on with reading. And there are different ways that you could extend upon that. You could go into more detail about the bird and just talk about it a little more, what it's doing in the story. That would be a way to extend it into high language modeling. High language modeling is a teacher often repeats or extends the student's response. Teacher focuses first on the student's attempts to communicate, then builds off of what the student's comments. So examples of high language modeling. During another reading of a story, teacher can say, how do you know that this child is sick? If a student says, look, a temperature thing, you can respond, that is a temperature thing. It's a thermometer. Then child's pointing to the picture or the thermometer that is used, pointing to the classroom thermometer that they use when talking about the weather, like that, the child would say. And then you can say, yes, like that. The thermometer in our classroom measures the temperature outside. This thermometer, pointing to the one in the story, measures your body temperature. Both thermometers measure temperature, so it's a way of extending on what the child has recognized. And then I have a few other examples back here. A child can come up to you and say, that's her dolly, and you can say, yes, that is Allie's dolly. So it's extending, it's also teaching and modeling a little bit more use of language. And then I had a little kid in my class during snack. He said, he taught me how to open my milk. So I said, wow, Joey taught you how to open your milk? That's great. So I modeled the correct way of that sentence. So I repeated what he said, but I modeled it correctly. He said teached, I said taught, and I, just modeled how to use a correct sentence, basically.
Okay, and my module goes over parallel talk and self-talk. It's pretty simple. Basically, the way I describe them is like you're a narrator or you're a sports broadcaster. You might not want to sound just like a sports broadcaster because it would overwhelm the child. But basically with parallel talk, you are describing in words what the other child or even another individual in the room is doing, saying, thinking, feeling into words. And then self-talk, you are describing what you are doing, seeing, thinking, or hearing into words. And the benefits to these are to develop more language and communication skills, develop cognitive thinking. Sorry, Katie. The other benefits would be to establish a rapport or relationship with the individual that you're doing this with, to establish trust, work on conflict and resolution, that type of thing. Some examples would be for parallel talk, you could be reading a story, which as you can tell our whole theme here is a book, and we'll be showing you how each of our piece integrates with the book at the end. But during the story, say you're reading a story about farm animals, and there is a child in your classroom that doesn't have a lot of language or communication skills, they might just point at an animal like a cow in the story, and you would say, oh, I see you're pointing at the cow. You must like cows. That cow has spots. That cow is walking across the meadow. You're describing what is going on in the picture, or maybe you're reading a story that has to deal with emotions and you see the child mimicking the emotions. Oh, you look sad. The person in this picture feels sad as well. And another example, and this would be of self-talk, would be when you are doing a tabletop or lessons with the students, you might describe step for step what you're doing through the project, because they're going to have to do it as well. So you're going to paint a picture of a cow. I'm going to grab the black paint first. I'm going to grab a small paintbrush, and I'm going to paint my cow like that. You're just going to describe, using a lot of language, what you're doing. One recommendation is not to overwhelm the child and go completely crazy, like, oh, look at Jimmy now, he is walking down the classroom to the beanbag chair, now he's sitting in it. Now he lifted his right leg. You don't want to overwhelm them like that. But I say to try to use the descriptive language for every second or third action you are doing, especially for students that are learning English as a second language. Try to slow down and break it down into simpler bits so it's not overwhelming. And this works really good with infants and toddlers as well. Like when my child was an infant, she obviously had no verbal skills, but when I took her shopping, I talked to her and had conversations with her as if she could talk back, and I would brainstorm ideas for dinner, take her to the aisle. Oh, this is the aisle that has spaghetti noodles. I wonder which spaghetti noodles we're going to buy today. Or maybe elbow pasta. I probably looked crazy, but by the time she was a year of age, she had more vocabulary than some 3-year-olds that I meet. I think I fostered that by using a lot of language with her. So that's my piece.
And I'm advanced language, and for advanced language, you use a variety of words and define those words and expand on them, make real-life connections for the children, use different kinds of words and put them into simple terms, relate it to the children's lives. For example, if the child says, I have a red, blue, and green hat, you can say to them, yes, you have a multicolored hat. So that links what the child already knows to, into more advanced language and summarizes the known concepts with a new related word. Advanced language, you should use it throughout the day, so it, not just at one time, but even outdoors. There are a lot of times that you can talk about the things that are happening around the playground, and promote a whole language-rich environment. Affirm the children's comments and recast their information into more complex forms, turning it into complete sentences. Like at recall, if it was, Sam, what do you say? What did Sam do today? And Sam says, blocks. You can say, well, I saw you in the blocks today, and I saw you loading pipes into the dump truck and dumping the pile of blocks or pipes in a corner, and it's just expanding on what they were doing and putting into a complete sentence. And use literature as a springboard to expand on children's language. And when Tessa was talking about the book we're using is called Bear Snores On, and we have a few copies that we're going to pass around so that you can kind of look at these as we're working on this book. But it's written by Karma Wilson, and it's illustrated by Jane Chapman, and it's just a really language-rich example with a lot of variety of vocabulary words. And on the back of your packet, there's a list of some of those words that are in this book. It's a pretty extensive list for one book. And we're going to use this book now for examples of how to foster language modeling in your classroom.
So we can pass some books around here.
I was just saying that. Yummy yums.
Yummy yums.
I was wondering if I could have a volunteer.
Sure.
Kim, I haven't had any time with you today. I miss having time. You remember this book that we
I
read
do
earlier?
remember it. You read it.
Do you want to sit down and we'll talk? So much fun.
Okay, what did you like about this book?
I like all the animals.
You like all the animals? Do you have an animal at home?
I do. I have lots of animals at home. We have cows and goats and chickens and dogs and cats. And my dad just got duckies. And they're in the living
You're
room.
so lucky. I only have
He's the
I only have a dog. Her name is Annabelle.
Oh, I like that name.
Let's see. In the cave in the woods, in the deep dark lair, through the long winter sleeps a great brown bear. Oh my goodness. You see all that snow falling? Do you like the snow?
I like the snow. I like to play in the snow.
That bear likes to sleep in the snow. I kind of like to
It'd be cold.
Mm-hmm. I know. I'm glad I have blankets on my bed. Cuddled in a heap with his eyes shut tight. He sleeps through the day and he sleeps through the night.
When does he eat?
Wow, that's a good question. I think all spring long he eats so much that he doesn't have to eat during the winter. That's a great question. Do you sleep through the night?
I do sleep at nighttime.
Do you sleep alone or with someone else?
I sleep in my own bedroom.
That's good. I have my bedroom too. And I have a big bed. The cold wind howls and the night sound growls, but the bear snores on.
My daddy snores really
I was just about to ask you if anybody in your family snores loud. What does he sound like? Oh my goodness. What does your mom think about that?
She hits him sometimes to make him stop.
Oh my.
She goes, be quiet.
Mm-hmm. She probably doesn't get to sleep all through the night then. That's funny. Oh. The itty-bitty mouse, pitter-pat, tiptoe, creeps, crawls into cave from the fluff snow. Snow is pretty fluffy, isn't it? Do you like mice?
No.
No?
I think
They're so cute and
they're
little.
gross.
Aw.
I don't like them.
Well, this mouse seems a little cute. Mouse squeaks. Too damp, too dark, too dank, too dark.
What does dank mean?
Oh, dank. It's kind of smelly almost. I wonder why it's smelly in there.
Maybe because it's dark.
Yeah, because it's dark.
In our
I-
basement, it's dark and it's sometimes stinky down there too.
Oh yeah, it gets a little damp. It's wet sometimes
Yeah.
down in there and it smells. Mm-hmm. So he lights a wee twig with a small hot spark. Have you ever hit a fire? A campfire? Do you go camping?
Yes, sometimes.
Do you go camping in the winter?
No, it's too cold. I like to go in the summer.
Oh, in the summer. Yeah, I like to go in the summer too. I love campfires. The coal pit pops and the wind doesn't stop, but the bear snores on. He's missing out on all that campfire. Two glowing eyes sneak peek in the den. Mouse cries, "Who's there?" And the hare hops in.
He looks like a bunny rabbit.
That's right. And sometimes, some rabbits, there's a difference between a rabbit and a hare. Isn't that neat? A hare. Have you ever heard of that? That's a silly word for a rabbit. But the hare. Have you ever had company come to your door?
Like friends come? Yeah.
What do you say when someone knocks on your door?
Come on in.
Do you ever say, "Who's there?"
Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to say that before I say come on.
It's safe that way. So the mouse cries, "Who's there?" and the hare hops in. "Oh, mouse," says hare, "long time no see." So they popped white corn and they brewed hot black tea. Me too. You like that sound it makes when it's popping? Do you pop it in the microwave or
In the microwave.
Yeah. Sometimes, when my dad used to make popcorn for me, he did it on the stove.
Did it go over?
Sometimes when he took the lid off. Mouse sips wee slurps and hare burps, big burps. That's so funny. What should he say if he burps?
Excuse me.
That's right. Good manners, right? the bear snores on. So that's just an example. We had several conversations throughout this book, but I think it's best if you're going to really pull out conversations to do a one-on-one like this, because you get a lot more back and forth. Of course, you could do it with the whole class, but then sometimes with that you're cutting people a little short. Oh, I know, and, you know, but this could be more personal. Thank you. Good input.
A badger scuttles by, sniffs, snuffs in the air. I smell yummy yums. Perhaps we can share. I've brought honey nuts, Badger says with a grin. Let's divvy them up, cozy down and dig in. And they nibble and they munch with a chew, chomp, crunch. But the bear snores on. A couple of the activities that we did in our classroom, and we kind of went along with these pages. Okay. I have 2 folder games on hibernation, and you could get a lot of open-ended conversation with these too. Talk about what would hibernate in the different habitat, and then ask them why they picked that. What would happen if a bear tried to hibernate under a rock or under a leaf? So I'll pass these around. And then this is a book that we also made in another one of our small groups, using a couple of questions. I start out at the beginning of the year. It's kid writing, kind of a watered down version. I start out at the beginning of the year. We do it maybe twice a month. When we, with our themes, we'll ask the children a question. They draw a picture of their answer to the question, and as they're dictating it to me, I write it down. This was done in January, and we're up to 2 questions now. We were up to 2 questions in January. Some of the children, after I wrote it, they wanted to write it underneath. So, as you'll see, a couple of them did that. The questions were, what would you eat if you were going to hibernate? And where would you find your food? Well, this particular one said they would eat a peanut butter sandwich and they'd get it at the store. So I'll pass this around. And then as a transition, later in the morning, before lunch usually for the morning group, and before snack in the afternoon group, we have what we call an author's chair. We take the papers over and the children read what they said, their response, show it to their friends, and then they transition to whatever activity they're going to next.
So, yep. Before I started reading this book, or no, not before, I read this book to my students, and when I got to this page, I had a little guy say, "Look, there's a beaver." And I responded, "Well, actually, that's a gopher, which kind of looks like a beaver." And then I said, "Well, why did you think it was a beaver?" And he said, "Because of its teeth." So I kind of went to extend, because I did repetition and extension, I extended on the fact that he knew that a beaver had big buck teeth. Well, in the story, this gopher does have big buck teeth. So I gave him the proper information, but made that connection for him and kind of extended on what he said. So a gopher and a mole tunnel up through the floor, then a wren and a raven flutter in through the door. Mole mutters, "What a night, what a storm," twitters wren, and everybody clutters in the Great Bear's Den. I also had a little girl say, well, what is a mole? And to extend and repeat, I pointed to the mole and I said, it is a small rodent that lives underground. It kind of looks like a mouse, but it doesn't have the long tail. See how a mouse has the long skinny tail? Well, a mole does not, but it has kind of the same body and features of a mouse. They tweet and they titter, they chat and they chitter, but the bear snores on. In a cave in the woods, a slumbering bear sleeps through the party in his very own lair.
Who's next? Well, I have mine right here. Oh. Basically, what I have up here, I'm going to go over examples of self-talk and parallel talk as I'm reading the story. So the story continues on. Hare stokes the fire, mouse seasons stew, then a small pepper fleck makes the bear. And an example of parallel talk would be the child points at the fire, and I have a little discussion example here. It says, yes, that is a fire. Fire is hot. Mouse is seasoning the stew. You are pointing to the wren. You seem to like birds. Or self-talk. Stew sounds delicious to me. I bet he seasons it with salt or pepper. I would season mine with garlic. I wonder what that pepper fleck makes bear do. I'm going to turn this page to find out. I'm a little nervous to find out. Then I turn the page, and this is the next page. And of course, the children, chew. He blows and he sneezes, and the whole crowd freezes. Again, parallel talk. Wow, your eyes got big. Bears sneeze seem to alarm you. Look at the other animals. Bears sneeze so hard their hair blew backward. The animals look frozen in fear. Self-talk. Oh my, that surprised me. What an enormous sneeze. Uh-oh, I am worried that stew might spill. I hope he does not frighten his animal friends away. And I better turn this page to find out. Turn the page. And the bear wakes up. Bear gnarls and he snarls. Bear roars and he rumbles. Bear jumps and he stomps. Bear growls and he grumbles. Parallel talk. Look, the animals are running away. Bear is making a grumpy face. Can you make a grumpy face? You are making a very grumpy face right now. You are pointing at the snow. Brrr, snow is cold. There is a storm outside that cave. You seem a little worried about them going out there into that blizzard. Self-talk. I can gnarl and snarl too. Rawr. I can almost feel Bear's stomp and his jump. I sure would not like to make Bear mad. I want to run to the blizzard outside myself. I'm doing it.
Okay. You snuck in my lair and you've all had fun, but me, I was sleeping and I have had none. And he whimpers and he moans and he wails and he groans and Bear blubbers on. Mouse squeaks, don't fret, don't fuss, look, see, we can pop more corn, we can brew more tea. Bear gulps, Bear gobbles, he sighs with delight. He spins tall tales through the blustery night. When the sun peeks up on a crisp, clear dawn, Bear can't sleep, but his friends snore on. In our section of this book, we're going to have, I just made some little flaps. These are the words that were just in those few pages I just read. And the first one is lair, and to use this variety of words and connect it to their life, the lair in our classroom is we build dens, so we connected it with what is a lair. It's like a den. A den is a place like a cave or a home where animals can go and stay warm and be safe. So I'm going to pass this to our central office staff, and they're going to pick one of the little doors and expand on a word and connect it to children's lives.
Whimpers. I have to connect it. Oh. As a kid? Am I a kid?
No, you're the teacher.
Oh.
I already took the kid role.
You're the hard part.
If you use it
If you
with
were
the kids
using
today,
it,
how
okay.
would you?
Yeah. sometimes I whimper when I'm sad. Do you ever whimper? Do you know what whimper means? Whimper means that you're kind of crying, but not really crying. You're just making little sounds because you're sad. Do you ever whimper?
Do I have to? Can I peek at the words first?
Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure what I was gonna get.
Okay, gulps. Oh my goodness. I would ask them, do you know what gulp means? And let's make some gulping sounds and we'll gulp. And what else do you think made gulp? Have you ever heard like a goldfish gulp or a fish or put on the spot here.
We can get a big gulp
Oh, connections to the real world. There you go. Okay, did you ever buy a big gulp at the Dandy Mart? You're not allowed. Yeah.
Blustery. Of course, do you know what blustery means? When you look out the window and it's snowing and it's blowing all around, it's really blustery out there, outside. Oh, right there.
I'm the camera check. I don't think so.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. Sorry, I knows how to run it.
Spins. So we all know how to spin, right? The top spins. I can spin too. Let's all spin together.
Good way to spin it.
Double duty, Kim, you're alright. Snuck. Does anybody know what snuck? When we wanna get somewhere and we walk very quietly, like we're gonna sneak into mommy's bedroom to see if she's still sleeping. We wanna be quiet and we don't want her to find out that we're there, so we sneak quietly there. If anybody else wants to turn. And that concludes our
Good job.